So Kent, sorry to put you on the spot. Can you go ahead and start the recording?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Okay, sorry, John. Back to you.
Okay. That's all I really had on the community, just to kind of go over, show where we are and the contributions on it, and then we'll just play it by ear with it in terms of the people that are coming in. Anything else you wanted me to go over? Any other questions on the community?
It's Tony. I think one of the reasons we're going over this is because we as an organization have asked for this for a long time, and I think we'd like to see. And I know John, who I want to thank again for setting this up, would like to see us take advantage of this and get some more activity. It's new, so this is a great reminder that we have this resource and that we can start using it.
And I talked to Scott last week, so you guys okay with me approving Scott to come in?
Ooh, now wait a minute. Oh.
Which Scott?
I'll abstain.
Scott Hall.
He's from, where is he? Where is he on the list?
He's on my team on ServiceNow, and he's not on it yet, but I talked to him last week. We had a team meeting, and I talked to him about coming into the group, and because he knows a lot about what's going on in the UCs. He used to work with Tony.
I don't have a problem with that. I'll just add him now, and I'll just double check with Wendy that we added him.
All right. That's all I got on the community then.
Hey, thanks a lot, John.
You're welcome.
If Chris is ready, I think, Chris, you're next on the agenda. Talk about ServiceNow licensing. And again,
yep.
This is something that's come up many times for obvious reasons, including at the Snug and Davis. And so we want to have a productive discussion. Chris, if you want to start with a few, you and I have talked a little bit. I know you have some thoughts about this.
Yeah.
If you'd like to get us started.
Yeah. Yeah. So thanks, Tony. Obviously we are under contract, a master contract with you guys until December 31st, 2021. So we still got another couple years. Another 3 years almost on the contract. As you guys all know, you have access to quite a bit with your part number that you get, which is ITSA Unlimited with platform runtime, and you get it at a great price. One of the things that we're running into, and so I want to open it up for questions and see if I can answer questions for you guys, is as we continue to add functionality to our portfolio, and our SKUs are starting to change quite a bit. A lot of the schools are asking for things like, virtual agent, chatbots, those kind of things, which currently, technically are not really covered under your part number per se. So, there's probably some things that we need to look at in terms of, how do we address that with the contract, or do we do one-offs, those kind of things. And so I just thought it would be good to have a constructive conversation about that with you guys and take questions. And to be honest with you, I don't have a whole lot of answers right now because it's just starting to come up. But I'll that's Tony and I wanted to talk about it with you guys.
UC Merced, this Kent. Chatbot, I'm interested in that. I want to test it out. Probably coming up the next spring and summer of next year. Live Desk, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. From the maturity wise of where we're at.
Yep. Okay.
UC Berkeley, Tony. We have some interest on virtual agent, tentative at this point.
Okay.
Workspace. The other thing, I'll throw something else out that you and I have discussed, Chris, is we have challenges with our user community, our users around fulfiller licensing. And
yes, yeah.
So, you know, if we could have, you know, fixed price, you know, all you can eat pricing. I know there's challenges with that, but we you know, it is challenging. It's sometimes hard to explain to our customers, you know, how we do the billing, and of course they want things like, well, can we bill monthly? No, sorry, it doesn't work that way. So that kind of thing. So we're looking at other options, hoping for other options.
Yeah. So let me bring this up, and I'll you know, we have had a couple of universities, not many, and John and I are currently working with a county organization that are looking at doing an enterprise type license. So what that would allow you to do is it's basically you go all in on a product or a set of products, and you pay, you know, for everybody to use it, right? So what that allows you to do is it allows you don't have to count licenses anymore, basically, right? You're not trying to say, okay, well, how many fulfillers do we have? You know, are we over? Are we under? You know, you get the ability to use those licenses. You know, and the other thing is that it would do is it would take your cost basis down dramatically from from $30 basically what you're paying today to you know, a much smaller number, right? So then that, you know, like this county example that John and I are working on, one of the hurdles is, well, their departments don't want to pay, you know, $600 a year for a user, right? But if we can get that cost down to, you know, to a couple bucks, or, you know, $5, $6, $7, whatever the case may be, that becomes a much more, that becomes a much different discussion that they can have with their departments. It allows for more adoption and more usage. So that's one of the things that we would certainly love to explore with you guys. The challenge, you know, is that it might cost you, you know, the numbers become bigger, right? Because you're licensing everybody. Does that make sense?
It does, right?
So, yeah, I don't know if there's an appetite for it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think part of the challenge is that our negotiator that always represents us in these discussions is not on this call.
Yeah. Yep. So that is certainly true. You know, and that is something we'd be happy to entertain for sure. Richard Gregory, I think, is the person that we negotiated with last time, correct?
Yeah, I think he's done all the contracts.
Yeah. Yeah.
We love him.
I believe you're right. I mean,
Yeah,
what's
we
that?
love him.
So,
Yeah, she said that she loves him.
yeah.
I think
No,
she speaks for herself.
he's a good guy. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think the conversation should be started at that level first.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where it
Okay.
should.
So that would be the focus then, would be on, rather than a one-off per campus, which may not be effective for either side, then, you know, for site-wide and looking at the existing contract. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, so it would be, the challenge, Tony, would be is if we were to do something like that, the most effective way to do it would be kind of an all or nothing type thing, right? Just because if you don't do it that way administratively, it can become very difficult to administer then, right? Because then you're having to track who's part of the agreement, who's not part of the agreement, and then we have multiple agreements for the UCs, right?
Right. So a question I have, again, Tony Berkeley, should we assume if there's a new feature? Well, let me rephrase that question. As we're exposed to new areas in ServiceNow, how do we know if that's covered, or should we assume that's not covered, or we just send you an email?
He's on.
Probably the best way to do it is send me an email.
Okay, great.
And I'd be happy to would you guys want me to reach out to Richard on this, or do you guys want to reach out to Richard also, and maybe we can start the discussion that way too?
Who's interested in that kind of model? I don't know if I am yet.
Right.
Well, Berkeley's interested, and of course, as with everything, it depends on what the bottom line would look like. But we are interested in at least the discussion around it. And we talked about two things so far. Again, just to clarify for myself and for everyone. One is enterprise licensing, and the other one is new features or new applications, new stuff in ServiceNow is coming out between now and the end of the current UC contract. We had a couple of questions about new features. I don't know if that's a general issue or an issue across other campuses as well. Any show of hands, any concerns about that as well in terms of current licensing?
No, maybe Tony, you and I, and anybody else interested, we should talk to our procurement guy and just let him know what's going on, and then he can address it from his point. Does that sound good?
That sounds good. Ken, I can start an email, or you can, if you want to send me or if you want to introduce me to your procurement guy, I can introduce you to ours and go from there.
Nicole, or Anita, who was it again?
Oh, Richard Gregory from Lawrence Berkeley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, I'm curious. I know you have the HR application. What are you going to do with UC Path?
That is an excellent question. We have some very overworked staff at CSS HR working with us now to figure that out. I think for the first round, for our initial go live, there won't be that much. The short answer is that we will continue to use ServiceNow. We're just working out some of the details in terms of workflow and the data. But it's, as you know, is where I think we've all heard, there's no integration at this point.
Yep.
So it's how that, it won't be SneakerNet, but how the data gets from ServiceNow to UC Path, and what will actually originate directly in UC Path that'll skip ServiceNow that we're talking about.
Right.
But it'll be in use. We're currently looking at getting the requirements for at least the initial changes, and we'll probably have some subsequent too, even after the initial go live.
Got it. Just curious.
Yeah, and we are paying a flat rate for the HR application based on Campus FTE.
whole campus?
Yes, yeah, we're not paying based on HR agent.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, well, thanks, Chris. I think that's it for that discussion. Appreciate you bringing that to us, and Kent and I
Yeah, no problem.
will follow up with you.
Yeah, and
okay.
I guess for everybody on the call too, if you guys ever have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always more than willing to have discussions with you on this. So
Great, thanks again, and
Yep.
and thanks for your availability, and which has just been fantastic. Since you've taken over.
yeah, no problem.
All right, John, back to you. ServiceNow portfolio.
All right. This is the fun stuff for me.
Well, that's not allowed. I'm sorry. This is serious business. We don't really like fun.
Yeah. It's all good. All right. So when we go in and look at IT services, and this is really what we're all doing, right, is we're providing these IT services. And it's very simple. I just presented this to my group last week. We all met, had a big team meeting. And I said, really, this is our job, is to do this, right? It's not doing a help desk, or it's not doing project management. It's helping people do this better, right? It's really delivering these IT services. And at its simplest level, right, this is really what we should be focused on. So it doesn't matter if it's, like I said, going forward, it doesn't matter which service it is, but right, that's what we're really doing across the whole platform. And if we look at doing this IT service delivery, it comes down to a few different pieces, and that's really what I'm going to go through today. And I'm going to start with how the group got started, so some of the inspiration for the group, and then talk to you about, a lot of you guys are involved, so I'll definitely bring up some of your names as we go through. And then I'll talk a little bit about the status and the contributions of people in the group. And then I'll spend a little bit of time at the end on what I'm working on. And I'll try to wrap up about 10 minutes before the hour, just to leave it for questions, because this is the last thing you had on the schedule, right, Tony?
Actually, we have an open discussion, nothing planned for that. I'm not sure how much need there is, and a real brief introduction of the host. So any objections to taking up most of the rest of the meeting today on portfolio?
Nope.
All right, John. I've been lucky enough to be involved, and more so someone on my staff. So I think this will be pretty interesting for everyone.
Good deal. So the reason we started the working group was from a lot of people. So some of the earlier people that got me involved in this, definitely Anita, and Anita had a lot of interest in basically creating like a service management office, and then Lisa from USC, and then of course Tony, you guys were really big on the CMDB, and then one of the guys I talked about in customer doing our CSM product, our customer service management, he was always saying we need to get back to just delivering services, whether it's delivering a service to a student or a staff or a citizen in some of our city customers, that we just need to get back to that core piece. So everything was really getting back to, what is delivering a service and what does it all mean? And a lot of people were coming to me with that, especially with people with shared services, like all the schools are trying to do, and the cities and counties. So we see shared services where CIOs really push and push and push, right? And everybody they want to play nice with all of the organizations, in your case, the schools, in the case of like our cities and county customers, the different organizations. So they don't want to make them use something, right? They want to let them use what's best to run their organization. But it really becomes a mess, right? If you let everybody have their own products that are all doing the same thing, you lose the benefit of being that big organization or the big campus, like in your guys' cases. So that shared services model really needs a boost. Where I see people successful in this is phone systems, right? For some reason, people agree to at least use the same phone system when they're on a campus or in a county. And even that was hard 5 years ago, right? Everybody was using different phone systems. So what a lot of the CIOs and the higher ups are trying to do is carry that forward. It's like, how can we get more out of shared services? We're a big organization and we're acting like a bunch of small organizations, so we're missing out on that benefit. So there needs to be a little bit of push there. There's really no top-down people coming saying, hey, you should all, there's basic things like, yeah, you're going to use the same email. Everybody's not going to have their own email server or their own phone system. But with some of the services that we support, like the incident management and change management and some of the things in service catalog, those things, not so much as those other big areas like the phone systems. On some of the campuses that Chris and I have been to, the UC campuses, there's 12 different products for managing incidents and for IT cases. So it's really needs a boost in that area. The third part is there's interest in standards. A lot of people started ServiceNow because of ITIL, and there's been grumblings about the next version of ITIL for a couple of years now, and everybody's wondering what that's going to be like. And I think we're starting to see pieces of that through the groups like EDUCAUSE. But also IT for IT is another one that's come up a lot. And they're like, okay, are they finally coming up with a good model that we can use to deliver these shared services better? IT services rather, better. So that's coming up in the group too, and it's a big driver for us. The other part is like, what is ServiceNow doing? You know, we got pieces of this service delivery all over the place. And we have this kind of, I'll call it a half-baked service portfolio offering. And everybody wanted to know what we're doing in this area. And I was able to show it to people, but, you know, like, Tony, you asked for HR help, right? I was able to bring in an HR specialist. And Anita, you guys asked for help on cloud management. I was able to bring in a cloud specialist. And down at UC San Diego, Parrish asked me to bring in somebody for customer service management. And Chris and I were able to find somebody to do that. But there's really nobody that says service management, I'm the expert for that, because it touches everything. And it touches the ITBM piece, it touches the IT service management piece. So we have a piece that tries to bring it together. Some of the definitions, and I'll talk a little bit about what Justin did on this. He started a piece on there for a style guide for how we actually define a service in ServiceNow. And then finally, the last piece is I'm starting to see these service management offices and designations of people that are getting promoted with service managers in their title. So people are really starting to see this, like, how do I do this for a career, or how do I reshape my organization? We're even seeing, Chris and I are even seeing some reorgs where service management offices are a big part of the reorgs, either as part of the PMO or the PMO is part of it. So it's really interesting to see that coming up as a topic for discussion. So all of these things kind of drove me to this, what can we do? And we started off one way and we ended up with more of a working group where people just bring in the stuff they're working on and we go over it together. And yeah, and that's where we are now. Any questions on the inspiration? Okay. I don't know if we have anybody from San Francisco on today, but we're starting to see these, you know, these service teams, right? Instead of it used to be the help desk team, right? They're starting to really have more of a message of being a service management organization. And the IT service catalog is a big piece, right, of IT service management that they have at Davis. And then I also have Riverside County is the big county we're working a lot with on service portfolio management. And they also have a central place to come in, but it's more of a page that just talks about service management methodologies that they're using within the county, but not really having a catalog or anything like that. So there's different people coming at it different ways, from the organizational side, from the side of the offering, like on the catalog piece, and then more just in the way that they're talking about the different sub-organizations, I guess, the way that I see IT is presenting themselves to those organizations. Even those things are changing a little bit. Now, a way to look at it from a standards model is IT for IT is one of the nice pieces. So IT for IT really doesn't prescribe a process. What it's about the data and the systems used to manage services. Right? So basically, the centerpiece of IT for IT is the service model backbone, right? The purple up the middle here. And what they have with the service is all the different pieces from plan, build, deliver, and run. So here, if you look at the strategy to portfolio area, we're focusing on the financing, the asset, all the assets required, all the sourcing and vendors you're going to use to actually have a strategy to move this into your service portfolio. So all these different pieces we're looking at, and this is what I said, this is what I talked about earlier. Like if you look at all these different pieces, this is not one module in ServiceNow like we're used to dealing with. It's not a plugin. It's across all the plugins in ServiceNow, right? All the apps in ServiceNow. This touches everything. So how do we kind of facilitate that across the entire platform? Now, once you get into the plan piece, you're actually building it. So this is more in the project area, right? A heavier focus on project where you're actually defining the resources that you need to build it and the costs and doing all that planning. And then when you have the service finally, you need to start offering that. So how do you put it up in the catalog like Anita had? And how do you build that catalog and offer it and then let people come in and take advantage of that offering that you have? And one of the big pieces here, I said, like, if this goes hand in hand with the licensing discussion we had earlier. Like if we made it easier for different schools to come in and participate in your incident management process, right? Like use incident management provided by Central IT instead of buying my own product and managing it myself, or using another product because it's less expensive on a fulfiller model, right? How do we provide it in a very easy way through a service catalog so somebody can get it? So it's just as easy to do this as it is to download a product off of the web and then stand up my own incident management service for my 50 people, right? Which a lot of schools are doing. And then at the end, it's more of this is what we're operationally doing with all our services today, is we're watching them and we're doing different detections on it. So what the IT for IT service model does is it really breaks these down into functional areas on what are the building blocks of each of these different sections: the plan, build, deliver, and run. And this is a little bit.
I'm sorry, John, it's Tony. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just so people can stop typing furiously, will you be able to share the slide deck with us after you're done?
Sure.
Perhaps put it up in the community.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks for letting me interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. I'll send this up. I'll put it on the community link. That's a good use of that community. Going one step further into IT for IT, then I'll get off the IT for IT area. If you really look, you can start mapping at this level, looking at the architecture, you can start mapping certain pieces of what you guys are doing with ServiceNow. So if you look at strategy to portfolio, those 5 functional areas, I've talked to a lot of you about demand management. We've talked a lot about the portfolio, which this gets a little bit confusing because this introduces the idea of a service portfolio, but also you have an application portfolio and there's a project portfolio. So all of those 3 portfolios, but this is more about that service portfolio piece. And a lot of times it overlaps with the project portfolio because a lot of times they're one and the same. Like you have a project to deliver a service, or you have a project to implement a service for another department, an existing service that you have. So these are some of the things we're talking about in the group at the strategy to portfolio phase. And with one of the people in the group, we actually have a professional services proposal to implement this piece. Like how do we take, for those of you that are ITIL certified, how do you take a service design document, which is a big part of ITIL, and how do you consume that into ServiceNow, right? So that's really what IT for IT is about, is if you take a service design document, how do you get it in? What are the records that you need to create to manage all the work around a service, from defining it to deploying it to fulfilling it, right? Once you deploy the service and make it available, and then to watch it at the end, right? So you'll see, if I'm looking at this piece, I see the design piece with the demands and then the projects come in here, right? The project component, source control, right? Which, you know, we do on the platform. And some of you are using our Agile piece today. And then here, this is the piece that Davis focused on coming out. So they have they don't have a shopping cart, right? But they have the offer management component where they're actually defining the offerings that are provided through IT, right? These are the things that we offer. So how do you take that now and build these other blocks? How do you rationalize the delivery of that service that you're offering with another department so that they can get what they need out of it? Do they need chargeback and showback? Do they need to see analytics? I know this is a big piece that Dan at Davis is talking of. You know, they want to see this piece. When they deliver this service, they want to make sure that they can prove to the organization that's consuming the service that they're giving them. They want to make sure that they can see what they're getting for their money. Right? Are we delivering it like we're supposed to? And all that together, right? All that negotiation leads up to the fulfillment. And that's basically IT. Then we've just got your typical things we do over here: problem management, incident management, change management. Some of you guys are looking at ITOM, right, which would be the diagnostic component of that as we consume events from our other monitoring services. So this is really the architecture that brings all that together. But this is why it's so hard, right? There's so many moving parts to this, right? But if we start thinking about these, and that's really what the group is on, can we get strategic in thinking about these and at least move in the right direction? So once we form the group, we've had 9 meetings so far, and right now there's 25 people on the invite, and that's 10 customers on the invite, and you can see those customers underneath. So USC is a pretty active member. Santa Monica government has joined, but they haven't really participated that much yet. So that's the city of Santa Monica. And then all the UCs we have on there. Rivco is Riverside County. And then the city of San Diego is another big customer of ours. They're doing quite a bit in that first part that we talked about, where they're doing all the demand management. And UCLA hasn't been able to attend that much yet, but there's definitely some interest there that we were talking to them about on the customer service management side, where they want other organizations to be able to come in, schedule work to get done, like putting a phone jack in an office, but then charge them a monthly ongoing fee for that jack, like it's $2 a month. So how do you deliver that service on the ServiceNow platform? Like, what are the records behind all that happening? Right, on average, we get between 4 and 10 people we have a bi-weekly call on Fridays. And a couple of people have asked me to move that from a Friday, but it's really hard to schedule it to get all 25 people in. But we do have 4 to 10 people, and we do record the call. So I send out meeting minutes with a recording of the call every week afterwards. So hopefully there's some people listening to the recordings, but I don't really have any analytics on that. The deliverables so far have been, Justin he started out with the first customer to present, and he's from UC Berkeley. And he has a style guide that he presented. So really what this style guide did was it said, this is a way at UCs that we could deliver a service. So what he did is he talked about all of the pieces, basically the records on the ServiceNow platform, and how to bring those pieces together in a meaningful way so that we can deliver a service and a service offering on the ServiceNow platform. So really what so it's kind of a cheat sheet for saying these are the pieces that make sense to define as you go forward in a service, in a service-oriented way, or service portfolio way. All right, this is a document that TRAM from the city of San Diego. So she came up and she shared a service design document, and she brought that document in. So we had, she delivered this on 11/13. So there is the final that's available now. So she was the first one to complete a deliverable where the group actually has access to it. She delivered that on 11/13. And now we're looking, we're working with Tram now on a services delivery. So our services team is going to come in and work with her on actually applying this service design document across all of the pieces that they have of ServiceNow. So how do we look at this across all the modules? Justin's style guide is a really nice, like I said, kind of a cheat sheet, a short version that's a few pages long that you could read and really get an idea for how you can deploy a service or use that service portfolio methodology in the UCs. So he really customized it for that reason. So it talks about the services, the offerings that are underneath the services, which are the things you actually get with the catalog. And then he went into some, like down here, you'll see the SLAs and OLAs that are on those services that you're delivering. So it's a really good quick read that'll give you a sense for what we're really trying to do with service portfolio management. Okay, and then what's interesting with Lisa, right? So Lisa at USC, they're undergoing a big, how do we shape the organization around delivering services, around a service portfolio or a service management office, I guess you'd say. How do you rationalize all these different pieces that are coming in, like the service, this is the one I was telling you about before, the service portfolio versus the app portfolio versus the project portfolio. And how do you deliver these across the reference architecture and bringing those together? So she hasn't really delivered anything yet, but she's definitely had a couple whiteboard conversations. All right, I got a few more minutes here. So this is what I'm working on now. So if we go back to if we look at this real quick, we got people working on, this is the city of San Diego's working on here. Basically both of these, they're working on the project piece, on the deliverable piece. This is the piece that I'm working on, which is more the service catalog and the thing that Dan and Anita were interested in. And then Justin kind of took, Justin's piece is more here too. It's more in the design. Like, what do we really need to build to offer that service? So if you look at mine, I created this Visio so far, and it really says, okay, when a customer browses the catalog and they're going to express some type of interest in a service, and this is more that negotiation piece, like how do you rationalize the service that's going to be delivered? So this is where I go into terms and conditions, which is a contractual piece that's available on the ServiceNow platform. So how do you establish an agreement after initial interest? How do you establish an agreement with the requester of that service? So it goes back and forth to get all the terms and conditions right. And then at some point it gets approved, and there's going to be departmental approvals and things that go in between there. And now we have to deliver it. So this is the fulfillment piece of that. And another piece I toyed with putting in here was actually the offboard piece. Like, how do you go ahead and get rid of this service? Or how do you say, look, you subscribe to this service for a year because we have to pay some external vendor. Like, how do you get out of it? And that's the piece I don't have on here, is the offboard piece. And then, so 4 minutes, I'll show you really quick in the last 4 minutes here what we're doing on my side. So the piece I'm working on is, if we go back here, I'm working on this piece right here. So where do we have it in the service catalog? And the use case I'm using is actually an incident management service. So it may be a little bit low level, but if you come into the portfolio, and I'm working with a couple pieces now, or a couple different ways of coming in and experimenting with this. So there is if I go under IT service management and incident management, right, because I could have change and problem management here too. If I go to incident management, I actually have two catalog items. So the first one is a very simple catalog item that says, this is the process and this is the documentation. But I could add this to my cart here. And I really didn't like this because when you define in the style guide that Justin created, when you define a service offering, it gives you the option for a catalog item. And basically this is that option. This is what it would look like if you just followed the regular process for to say, I have interest in this incident management service offering. Now, the other way to do that is to use an order guide. And that's the piece I'm working on now, which I think this may be good for really simple services, but this one may be good for services that need, have more of a, I guess, a more complex relationship. So I'm saying, okay, if you wanted to come in as a school or an organization in a county or city and say, I want a 30-day trial of this incident management service that you're offering, how can I do that? Well, I'm going to ask for this for the communications department, and I want a trial for 5 users. And then I'm going to say, I'm not ready for this to send the terms and conditions for my department's approval. So just call me and let's discuss the terms and conditions. So what I would do here is this would just send the contracts, terms and conditions to the people looking at the catalog, and it would get a call from the service manager. Right? That's what I defined in my workflow is that the service owner here, so there's the terms and conditions were read. There's a conditional agreement where the person says yes. So what happens here is the service owner contacts the prospect and they ratify the T's and C's, and it's basically over a phone call. And if they can come to an agreement, then the contract actually goes out for departmental approval. So what I did is I developed this piece, and I know I got 1 more minute here. And this piece, what it does is when I submit this order guide, it's going to go ahead and give me a request, right? And it says that the T's and C's are sent to me, and then the contract's happening. So I'll end with this, but basically the workflow I'm working on now is the piece that so the piece that can come in and I'll show you the request that could actually send the notification out. So I'm doing a this on SC4. I'm doing incident. The incident. Service catalog. Let me go into the requests. So this is the request that just came in. And then what I'm working on now are the sub requests, right, to send the contracts and terms and conditions and calls to discuss. So the piece that I'm working on now is basically the workflow behind this. How can I email the terms and conditions out, which are part of our contracts module? And then how do I get approval so that I can walk approval with the initial person that has interest? And then how can I go ahead and get that approval move forward through the department? And so that workflow piece, the workflow piece in the editor is what I'm working on now.
Hey, John, it's Tony. I think we should probably start wrapping up. I think.
Sounds good.
See if there's any, if you want to see if there's any questions and any next steps, such as how people can look at deliverables that the team produces.
Sure. Anybody have questions or?
This is Paul. I don't have a question for you, but I just wanted to mention that I do have a question for Chris Garn at the end.
Yeah. Hey, Paul.
Hi.
Go ahead and answer it.
So-
Or ask it.
Oh, okay. All right. So Chris, what is your understanding about availability of the agent workspace in London?
Of the agent workspace is not available until Madrid.
Okay. All right. Was it marketed as being available in London previously, like back in around Knowledge?
I don't know,
I keep
John.
thinking
So
that it was.
here's what I know. Here's my understanding of Agent Workspace is that they did do some early access with London, with the intent of that being released in Madrid. But John, I don't know. You might be able to comment more on that
Okay.
timeline.
Yeah, in the early access of London, they had a call. I think they reached out for some early access people that were going to try the London or the agent workspace through the London release, and then release it in Madrid. So the intention was never to make it generally available on London, but it was to start showing it and vetting it with people.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for John on the presentation?
All right, John, so you'll be able to make that slide deck available in the community workspace at some point?
Yeah, I'll put it on there right now.
Okay, and I just want to say from Berkeley's perspective, with the work that somewhat introspective work we've had to do around service catalog and service offerings, and we have an ITSM program manager office now, that this is definitely very timely for us. So thanks again, John.
You're welcome.
So it's about 5 of, I don't really think we have time for open discussion. So unless someone wants to very quickly say they have a critical question, I thought that I would skip ahead and, yep. Someone have a question or comment?
No.
Oh, okay. And do the next meeting host intro. So the next meeting will be in January. We will not have a December meeting. I hope that doesn't come as terrible news to anybody. And Mike Quirk will be the facilitator. Mike, are you still on the call?
I am still on the call, yes.
Greetings, and I officially hand over the baton to you.
All right. So what I was planning on doing is we're right in the middle of actually a London upgrade, or just kind of starting it. So I'm hoping to be at London by the time we have our next meeting. So I was thinking, unless anybody has anything better they want me to discuss, I was thinking of focusing a little bit of time on our upgrade and the issues that we will have during the upgrade, or will have had during the upgrade. And, we've customized quite a bit. So I think if nobody else has moved to London at this point, maybe it could be valuable for some people who are thinking of going there. But if anybody has any other suggestions on things they'd like to see, I'd be happy to entertain them. Or they can email me.
Tony, what was the other thing we were going to carry over in the beginning of this conversation, this meeting? Was that the London upgrade?
We had the, actually, John was going to do a Madrid early view. He offered to do that. John, you thought that material would be available to next meeting, or the January meeting?
Yeah, it should definitely be available by then. I was expecting to have it for this meeting, but we got pushed out a little.
That would be great. I would be interested in seeing that myself.
Good deal.
I had a question for Paul. Paul, I see you joined. Have you and Wendy met at all to talk about the community and kind of promoting it more, or having some promote some organization behind it, or just checking what the status is?
When you say Paul, do you mean Paul Porter?
Paul Porter.
No, I haven't had any discussions with Wendy.
Okay.
I'm happy to engage in that. I probably, could start that as early as next week, but no, we haven't had any discussions. Are you on
Okay.
the call, Wendy?
I didn't see her earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right. Let me, I'll go ahead and put up, send off a quick email to her to see if she wants to plan getting together to talk about some structure, some organization.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, Mike, you got some topics there. Sounds good. Any other suggestions? Things you want to cover?
Nothing on my end.
It's Tony Berg. I know we'd be interested. I think our telecom instance is scheduling either first quarter, second quarter next year for London, and I think the rest of us were the ITSM instance. We're kind of on the fence between London and Madrid, so it'd be interesting to see your experiences there.
Yeah, I mean, I can say we've been evaluating it in our sandbox for over a month now, and we've seen less issues with this one than we have with all the more recent upgrades we've done. So, once we get in production, we'll see, but so far it's looking pretty good.
That's great. So I think that's about a wrap for today. And Kent, will you be able to put up the recording on the Snug folder, Google?
Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll try the community as well to see if I can put a little file out there.
That'd be great. That would get us to look at community. That's good motivation.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Hope everyone has a safe and healthy Thanksgiving. Take care.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tony.
Tony. Bye-bye.